I don't hardly know where to start for today's video, so I guess I'll start with the new machine I got, the trailer, the new idea for the trailer, and a welding skid I'm going to be building. This picture here is just one I found online, kind of a reference, and this is actually one I've used. This one's at the stockyards, it's theirs, and it gave rise to my own creation that I'm building in this video. Well, like I said, for starters, here's the new machine I bought. Well, new to me machine. It's a 610 Bobcat that's been made into a forklift. Set up for a beekeeper, but it works well for a fabricator too. It's got this little tail wheel on the back that makes it zero turn, so I don't rut up my yard too much with it. And it's, of course, the quick attach. The bucket arms are gone. It's just it's a forklift. It will never be a Bobcat again. It's a four-wheel drive forklift. Finally. And what you see set up here are the sawhorses and the chop saw. I'm cutting material for the welding skid so that I can be a little more efficient at the stockyards. Because I have a skid steer now, or a forklift, I can actually just pick up my welder and drive down the lanes between the pens. The monstrosity here that I was just going to use for hauling steel when I get it tore apart, it's now going to be, gotta check on my axles. I might have to upgrade those, but it's going to be a trailer for the skid steer and the welding skid. And the reason this is set up is because my trailer is full of demolition out of this icky camper. I'll show you inside of it real quick. It wasn't icky when it was new, but when things get old, they get icky. And I really destroyed it inside here. All the tables and everything are tore out, and I'm down to the clean water tank and the old furnace and everything. Trying to take it apart from the inside out so I don't have a big mess blowing around my yard. And yeah, so it may not be this long when I get done with it. I might chop the frame. You know, 'cause there's a lot sticking out past the tires. But I don't have a super heavy machine, so that should work. And then, so basically, this forklift is a lifesaver. I'd have never got the camper where it is without it. But yeah, now I don't have to lift that whole plate with the chop saw on it either. I can just stick it in the receiver hitch wherever it goes by flipping it around and picking it up again. With the forks, not me. But this system works really well here because I can slide right off my steel rack across here and cut. And of course, I'm probably move the trailer again over there and back my truck in here to weld. But yeah, this will hold my generator, my bottles, toolbox for grinders and things. But hopefully the torch, and I'll have to make a separate one for the air compressor. Super excited, super busy. I had never intended to get, I was happy with a welding truck, but this welding skid is a much more versatile idea. Because then my truck can be clean if I want to go get something big. I've got a bunch of pieces cut, laid out, and cross members and such, and enough for a top and bottom frame. And on the frames, what I did was I went and notched this out, coped it out that way, so I can have a little bit better chance of having everything square and true. I gotta just hit it with a grinder to make sure it's flat on the inside here, where the plasma cutter was, get rid of all the slag, and I'll tack it up. I had to move the truck in so I could weld it, reach it with that, because I don't want to take that feeder off, just want to leave it there. And then I can still back the forklift up here if I need to cut extra pieces. But, yeah, we're hopefully going to have the welder and the torch and clamps and grinders and things right there all in one go. I've got the basic foundation. This is the pallet that is going to be the welding skid. Only need to pick it up from one direction, off the truck onto the forks. So, and then here's the top. Or the top frame. So now I've got to figure out how I'm going to situate my bottles underneath. Like I have them on the truck there, But I want them better secured with more space between them so I can have the regulators on them. As long as that's all contained and they're all secured, it should be absolutely legal and fine. But now I've got to figure out my spacing and then run little strips of tubing so that they've got a center to stay in. And then from there I'll put a deck over that for the welder to sit on and some other things. This picture shows a mock-up of where stuff is going to kind of start to fit. And you can see on the bottom, you can see the square tubing. Those are the spacers that hold my bottles so many inches apart. Just room enough to screw a regulator on. And that'll keep the bottles from rolling around in the bottom of the skid. And that's kind of where the feeder's going to fit, and the hose reel for the cutting torch. And then that's also the beginnings of the platform for the welder to sit on. And I've got to add a few more supports in there and add sheet metal to the top. We've kind of got a warp jump here with the welding skid. I got so busy I couldn't record what I was doing. I had to do this in between jobs for docks and stockyards and stuff. But I liked the welding skid so much, I built the second one, the air compressor skid. And as well, I mounted 2 more receivers on my truck so that I can move my vise, and it's up here more convenient. And then my material rack, which is too short for the skid. But I'll get into these in a minute. The material rack is left short because I can take these off. And if it's a big project, generally they have a skid steer on site, so I can just take off my skid and go get material. But along the lines of the skid steer and the trailer, those axles are too small. The total capacity is 3,500 pounds, which is right about where this machine is. But as luck would have it, I scored the axles that were off of the trailer for that thing. They're quite old. One of them's bent, and I'm not sure about the bearings or the brakes, but I'm going to go through them and possibly use them. Hopefully I can get this tore apart before bees take over. But anyway, I'm going to kind of go over the lockdown system for these skids, which will be transferring to the trailer. I've got these cold rolled bars, and they're about 7/8 diameter. And I had to notch into my side rails here. But pretty much, let's see, I'm going to move this a little bit. The way this system works is these ends are locked down when I put this up, and then that locks the rods from going side to side. And the way it also helps keep them down, and then these eyelets in the middle also keep them down, so these won't leave the truck. The blocks keep them from scooting together, and then I've got very primitive wooden blocks to keep them from scooting forward, and they don't really scoot backwards that much. So I'm gonna get all my padlocks undone for the doors here. That's kind of a pain. I had that old service body sitting in my yard, so some of the doors I salvaged off of it, and they've got these tumblers. So I'm gonna, at some point in the future, order some tumblers and order some latches that are all keyed the same, so that I can do away with the padlocks and then just have one key. One thing I'll probably start with the welding skid, but I have extra welding leads. I have a total of 300 feet of lead now. And there's a lid up top. There's a basket inside this skid that holds the extra. Because the plan is, when I get the trailer built, I'll have the skid steer with me, so I won't have to run all that extra lead. I'll go ahead and get these unlocked and give you a tour. Here is the inside of the welding skid. As I was saying, I have my bottles arranged down here, and they're bolted in so I can leave the regulators in. They can't move. It's kind of a pain to change out bottles, but once they're in, I don't have to keep taking regulators off. And if I want to switch my argons from the spool gun that it's hooked up to now to the TIG torch, I have these quick connectors. Or if I want to take and extend, the lead out, I have these gas lines like this on my extensions. and the other skids too. There's a spool gun, a regular wire feeder. Of course, the gun's associated with it. I've got the stick lead hanging in there in the ground. And then if you look back in there, you can see that hose reel for the acetylene torch. That comes out this end too. And as I said, this was Oregon. This is C25. And then on the back side here, I've got the oxygen bottle. And then the acetylene has to stand up. The rest don't. There's the acetylene. I got to kind of climb up on the truck to get the acetylene. But that's the hard part. Finding the balance between using it on the truck and using it off the skid steer on the ground. So this door here allows me to refuel, as well as let the exhaust out. And of course I've got my files and screwdrivers and the chisel, just a handy place to put them. And you got to kind of leave all the doors open when it's running, just to keep it cool. If you've noticed in the pictures I showed of the examples that I did, most of those are open. On this here I have all my clamps so that when the door shuts it locks them all on. And vice grips have this nasty habit of unscrewing if you don't have them tight. So here I've just got bolts that they clamp onto so that I don't lose the screw out of the bottom and they don't rattle around so much. And this is just a little access door, again for cooling, and then I can reach the switches a little easier when it's on the truck. Of course we have wrenches and hammers and all kinds of stuff stuck everywhere it can fit. Now my grinders are supposed to hang up there, but the door's not really strong enough. It likes to warp. But I got to reinforce it. But then of course there's grinding discs and all that. Basically so I can have a workstation set up and I can just work out of this door mostly and reach everything. So now the other skid, we have the air compressor, where I can reach it. Up there you can see the basket full of leads. And I have air tools and an impact wrench, air chisel, more little grinders and stuff in there. And a couple new pieces that I showed a little while ago. I've got the air over hydraulic jack sitting right here. I've got my air hose coming out the side. Of course, drills, pressure checker for tanks when I got to weld like pontoons or water tanks for people. Bunch of ratchets and sockets and leathers and fire blankets, and the chop saw's back in there. I've got one of these deep bolt pans from Max. That's pretty nice. Magnetic. And then in here I have extra rods and stuff. The welding skid just got too heavy, so I had to move stuff over here anyway. But I've got plenty of space to expand. The little drill press will fit in there. But this trailer is actually going to have the chop saw and drill press on it. So I'm not really going to modify this too much more until I do that, because there's a lot I could do with this space. Full-on tools and, you know, toolboxes, roll cart drawers, whatever. And then I am going to put underbody toolboxes on this as well, for ratchet straps and chains and the like. But that's kind of the overview. Of course, both of them have these 4 lifting rings. I mentioned I can only grab them from the sides with a forklift, because that's basically, you know, I have a flatbed and that's what I'm going to do. But if I ever need to put one of these skids in a regular pickup, I can use lifting straps through those eyelets and set it in, because they're designed, they're 64 inches long by 36 inches wide. That will fit in most pickups. Just one of them. So that's kind of the overview of the welding skids. Kind of negated the use of chains on my leads for wrapping up. Again, that could be one of the things I do in this other skid, just put it on a reel to make it faster, and then put some of the less used things up there in that basket. But that's the truck and the skids. It is, and when I do use it, it is so much easier just to drive down the lane in a stockyard or get around somebody's lake property that's got a lot of obstacles that the truck won't fit through.